Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, a podcast to encourage, educate, and equip you to care for children and youth through adoption, foster, and kinship care. Hosted by an adoptive mom with over 22 years of kinship and adoptive parenting experience. She's on this journey with you. Please welcome Sandra Flach.
For when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be strong in character and ready for anything. That is James chapter 1, verses 3 through 4. And I'm your host, Sandra Flach. Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, where it is my passion and privilege to serve you. I'm a mom myself of 8, actually 5 through adoption, including 2 young adult sons who were both diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome when they were little. So I get it. I understand the challenges that come with raising kids with trauma histories and prenatal exposure to substances. So I hope that you will find this podcast an invaluable resource for your parenting journey. It is something that I couldn't even imagine having so many years ago when we first adopted our kids. And back in 1999, when our very first placement came, a kinship, 8-year-old little girl. And that kind of started us on this parenting journey. We already had 3 bios, but we added our daughter and then eventually adopted a sibling set of 4 internationally. And it has been quite the journey, still parenting because our 2 sons do still live at home. And so I know how important it is to have resources and have community. And that's what we want to provide for you. And including my newest resource that will be out by the end of November, my devotional book, Soul Care Saturday, 52 Devotions for Foster and Adoptive Moms. It will be releasing soon, and you can have a sneak peek at what the cover looks like. Unintentional, I'm on the cover. That was not planned. My daughter-in-law actually snapped a picture of me at our camp by the water, relaxing in a chair. You don't see my face, you see the back of me. I have a fishing pole, I have a line in, which you can, if you look real closely, you would see. And it's at our beautiful camp in the Adirondack Mountains. And it's the epitome of self-care, soul care for me there. And when I happened to see that picture, I sent it to our cover designer and I just said, I just kind of would like a cover that is like this with the water and the trees and that kind of thing. And I had no idea that she would actually use that, photograph. So we have put a little teaser out there on our social media. So go check it out so you can get a sneak peek at the cover and stay tuned for when you will be able to order the devotional. It will be available, hopes and prayers, by the end of November for you to be able to order online at Amazon. So check that out. And as well as our other resources, you would go to justicefororphansny.org, which is our parent organization's main website. There you will see the Adoption and Foster Care Journey right on the homepage, and click it and you will find all of our things from the special episodes of this podcast with Dr. Jared Brown, along with my blog, our FASD workshops, how you would join our support group, my favorite and recommended books to read and websites to visit and things like that. So I hope that you will check that out. There's a link to Justice for Orphans in the show notes so that you can find that easily. And be sure to like and follow our Adoption and Foster Care Journey pages on social media. We are on Instagram at AFC_journey and on Facebook as the Adoption and Foster Care Journey. We're trying to build up our followers there because previously everything was posted under Justice for Orphans. I was posting a lot of stuff personally. I still do, but we're really trying to build up those pages so that everything that we do that serves you can be found there. So I hope that you will check that out. And also coming up. My gosh, I'm almost, as I speak, finished with conference season for me in the fall. It's extremely busy. In November, I have a couple of local events to me in upstate New York, but I will be. By the time you hear this, I'll be probably taking a nice long nap, having come back from Chicago from the Replanted conference. But coming up, I am booking into 2026. I will be at the Filled Retreat in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, January 30th through February 1st. And then at the end of February, I will be at a conference in Birmingham, Alabama. In March, I will be at Mobilize, Ohio. I'll actually be doing 3 workshops at Mobilize, Ohio. Stay tuned for details there. I do have a link in the show notes for the Filled Retreat, and the Filled Retreat fills up fast. They sell out. So, you have to hop on that right away if that's something that you want to attend. But if you're interested in bringing me in to speak at your organization, for your foster and adoptive parents, for your support group, whatever you're doing, if you want to schedule a Saturday of training for your foster and adoptive parents on FASD or Soul Care, if you're doing a retreat for foster and adoptive moms, reach out because I would be happy to come. I do travel. Like I said, my 2026 schedule is already starting to book. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, don't wait. Reach out to me. My email address is in the show notes. Super simple. It's Sandra Flach at justicefororphansny.org, but you can go to the show notes and click on that there. So if you would like to reach out to me to schedule something, I actually have a group coming to me from across the country. They want to come to New York and do a 3-day training. So they're flying in a small group. So, we do things like that too, but I'm happy to come to you if you're not able to come to me. And I also do online trainings as well. So make sure that you're checking our social media and our website. So if you're interested in signing up for any of the conferences, any of the online trainings that I'm doing, you would find that out as well there. So, okay, enough of all of the housekeeping kind of stuff. Let's get to our guest today. We have with us Jeanette Yoffe. Jeanette Yoffe. Jeanette earned her master's in clinical psychology, specializing in adoption and foster care from Antioch University. She treats children, teens, and adults with serious psychological problems secondary to histories of abuse, neglect, adoption, and/or multiple foster placements. She has specialized for the past 20 years in treatment of children and teens who manifest serious deficits in their emotional, cognitive, and behavioral development. Jeanette is the founder of Celia Center, Inc., a nonprofit in Los Angeles supporting all members of the foster care and adoption constellation, which includes birth parents, foster youth, adoptees, foster and adopted parents, as well as professionals working in the field. She is also the clinical director of Yoffe Therapy, Inc., a mental health center in LA, providing services for families, children, teens, and adults connected by foster care and adoption. Jeanette's desire to become a therapist with a special focus on adoption and foster care issues derived from her own experience of being adopted and moved through the foster care system. Her personal experience has informed her education and provided insight into the unique stresses involved with these issues. So please welcome to the show, Jeanette Yoffe. Hey, Jeanette, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so excited to get to know you and hear your story. And I always like to start off at the top because I want our listeners to get to know you as well. So would you take some time and really share with us your personal foster and adoption story?
Yes, so I entered the foster care system when I was 15 months old. So I actually lived with my birth family in the Lower East Side of Manhattan for the first 15 months of my life. And so that's unique. But then I did enter the foster care system and remained there for 6 years, and then went to another home to be adopted. So I had multiple transitions, as we hear, multiple placements for foster kids. My birth mother was an immigrant from Argentina. I'm half Argentinian, which I didn't learn about until I was an adult, which was confusing. I could salsa and no one could explain why, right? So there's these genetics these traits that I had. I could even dance really well. And I didn't know, but my birth mother was a dancer and she came to New York City to dance with the Martha Graham Dance Company. However, at that time, she did become involved with drugs, and I was not impacted. My brother was in utero by substance use. And so we have different experiences. My sibling, we were separated. She had mental illness. It was deemed unsafe for us to live with her, of course, and my father didn't feel that he could care for two children under the age of 3 uh, working in New York City. So we stayed in the foster care system. My brother was raised in the Bronx. I was raised on Long Island. I had a very good upbringing. I wish my parents were more attachment informed, trauma informed, grief and loss informed, right? In the 70s, there wasn't as much education or podcasting as there is today. So, my mission has been becoming a psychotherapist in this field, teaching all therapists to be adoption and foster care competent. And also just really, I wanted to become the person I needed when I was a child.
Yeah.
I felt very alone, isolated. No one knew how to help me. It was confusing for people. It was confusing for me. So a lot of my work comes from, giving back and really thinking back to when I was a child and what did I need? And that's really how I've organically created the interventions I do, which I'll go into sharing, and all the work that I do with families. So I'm very passionate about this work and being here. And for your listeners, I just always have so much to share and grateful to be here and doing this work.
Yes. Well, we're grateful to have you and that you are doing this work because you have such personal experience. I know as an adoptive mom, myself and my youngest two, who are now in their 20s, we adopted them internationally. They both were prenatally exposed to alcohol, so they both have a diagnosis of fetal alcohol syndrome. So that lived experience that I have has driven my passion to serve families as well. So I totally understand,
Mm-hmm.
how that happens. I didn't realize that you had a brother that you were separated from. So when you were sharing, I just started thinking of all of the traumas that you experienced from being separated from your birth family and then your brother from your parents and then your brother and then you were in foster care all that time. I'm guessing more than one placement. Did you have several placements before you were adopted?
2 placements.
Two placements and then being adopted. So just all of those, and I'm sure, like you said, back in the 70s, it wasn't really understood attachment and trauma and all of those things. So nobody really probably knew how to. When our first experience with adoption was, we had 3 biological children, and then we welcomed in a relative little girl, an 8-year-old girl. So it was a kinship placement, but we had no training or understanding of the impacts of trauma, attachment, any of the things. So we just parented her with the traditional parenting methods that we did with our biological kids, which worked great with them. So we thought we know what we're doing. And you're nodding your head. So I know that that didn't really work out so well. Thankfully, she's 35 now and we have a good relationship, but there were many, many, many years of struggle and difficulty because we didn't know. And then eventually, over time, after adopting several children internationally, we finally became, trauma informed. We went through the whole trust-based relational intervention. You may be familiar with Dr. Karen
Yeah,
Purvis,
right. Uh-huh.
all of that. So we did all of that, and that helped, just, I was going to say hugely, not a great word, but it was a huge help to us to learn to parent better and understand our kids better. And then eventually started understanding the impact of alcohol exposure. But yeah, what was that journey like for you, having those traumas and then growing up and and what struggles? Can you speak to any of that?
Yeah, the trauma-informed lens is what happened to you, right? So it's what's happening inside of us is really what my goal is as a therapist to help children externalize because they're internalizing this whole experience because there's no words, especially when there's before the age of 3, the implicit memory is not cognitive. You can't recall, oh, that's right, I left my birth mother when I was 15 months, or, oh, on my birthday, I left my birth mother. We feel it in our bodies, and it's really hard to put into words. So we need a safe place to be able to share, be heard, be seen without judgment. And so it's utilizing the arts. And that's really, for me, writing, even poetry, drawing. I even, as an adult, made a painting of my 3 mothers that were living inside of me, that I had to reconcile and organize and identify. And I was so focused on the losses that it was in my own therapy when I went into therapy at the age of 13, because I was actually planning to end my life. We had taken in a child, another foster child. I have 2 siblings, and then we fostered another sibling, and she was returned to her birth mother. And this was a big moment for me. It's like I learned how to be a therapist growing up. I had all these experiences, and just seeing her have visits with her birth mother and then be returned and reunified with her was really shocking for me. And it really reinforced my shame and lack of self-esteem, because I believed, well, her mother must love her and want her. And where's my mother? There must be something wrong with me. Why is she not coming back for me? So I was always focused on the losses until I realized there's so much that I gained through this experience, the lived experience. And what can I do to transform this pain into purpose? And so that's what I've done now. And it's really helped me build resilience, build a new approach to trauma-informed care, and really listening to kids and listening to the little girl inside of me that needed one of my interventions, an anger bag, a sad bag. I needed somebody to help me grieve because I cried a lot. And my mother, God rest her soul, she would say to me, stop feeling sorry for yourself. And it was confusing for me because I felt very sorry for myself. I even met my biological brother when I was 6. We were supposed to go back to Argentina and live with our aunt and uncle. And that whole rug got pulled out from under us. So I met him, and I could remember the whole day that we spent together. And then I never saw him again until I was an adult. So having these experiences just really, I was able to tap into my pain, my grief and loss, going into therapy at the age of 13. I highly recommend all children. Just because they're not talking about their experience does not mean they're not actively thinking about it. They need therapy, and especially with an adoption competent therapist who understands the grief, the loss, the trauma, the separation. So it's been painful, but my brother and I had reunion as adults, and we've been growing up as adults together as siblings. So we found we have another half sibling who's in Spain, who is also biological to us. She shares the same mother. So it was just amazing to have that reunion. And I also did search, once my brother and I had reunion, we searched for our birth mother, and we found her in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and had reunion with her. And I realized, and reunion is really important for adoptees because it helped ground me in understanding why I was adopted. Because when I met her, I realized, wow, she does have significant mental health issues that I didn't know about. And had I lived with her, it wouldn't have been safe for me. She couldn't parent any baby born on my birthday. So it was, helping me explain to myself what I needed to know as a child has really informed my work in working with children, teens, and families and adults. Because I'm repairing what I didn't get. I'm also working with adult adoptees who didn't get this as children. So it's been quite a remarkable experience. And I've really looked at the gains now, what I've gained from this experience and what I can do to transform it into purpose. So very active, very busy. I'm a new contributor on Psychology Today, a blog contributor, and I write all about the foster care experience and adoption. So please check out my blog, The Inner Life of Foster Care. And so I'm just sharing what I've learned with the world now, really educating and supporting and inspiring to think differently about our experience, because it is a lifelong experience. It doesn't just go away, it's always a part of us. And what we do with it matters deeply.
Yes, I love that, what you do with it, for sure. With any of us, with our story, right? With our history. And I love just your transparency and how you have navigated your journey, and then understanding how important it is for others, adoptees and people who've spent time in foster care, to kind of navigate through that grief and the loss. And I have to say, with my kids, our kids that were adopted internationally, their experience has been vastly different than our daughter, who came through kinship. And her birth mom had passed away prior to her coming to us, but didn't ever know her father. And then our kids adopted internationally, our siblings. And they had been in orphanages. So that's another level of trauma and the shame that comes with that, and navigating all of that. So I love how you're having these conversations, and you are, working with these folks so that there can be healing. So with the trauma, Jeanette, what should parents, adoptive and foster parents, what should we understand about the impact of trauma on our children, really, regardless of what age they come to us? Because I know of parents who've adopted kids, you know, in the delivery room, got to cut the cord, right? And then they think, oh, this is a clean slate. This, we don't even have to tell this child that they were adopted. But that's not the case, right? Because the attachment starts in utero. So what should parents know? What are some of the basic things that we should know?
Well, trauma lives in the body. It's not just the mind. And kids need the language. They need someone, what's shareable becomes more bearable. They need someone holding their hand through this grief and loss. Like, what I needed my mother to say to me was, I'm so sorry you're feeling so sorry for yourself. Honey, you have a lot to feel sorry for. I needed her to give me permission to grieve, because
Mm.
what happened for me was I had all this grief inside of me, and I actually still had visits with my foster family, who I formed an attachment to. Children form attachments to their foster families, even if they've lived there for 3 or 6 months. They still have memories, thoughts, feelings, sensations about them. And I grieved that. I grieved my birth family. I needed permission to grieve. And when we're not given permission to grieve, it stifles the grief process, and we internalize, and it becomes anxiety.
Mm.
And also anxiety, when there's frustration there, when a child cannot manage or bind anxiety, they will project it out. And that's where anger comes. Anger is the easiest emotion to have. It's a secondary emotion. It protects us from feeling loss, grief, anxiety, shame. And so we're defending against all these intense feelings, and we will project it out. Some kids are very angry. Some kids get stuck in anger and denial. They don't know how to tap into this part of themselves, because it feels like an abyss. I remember the moment that I really tapped into my grief. I felt like I was in space and I had no grounding. I felt like I was going to lose myself in the grief. That's how intense it is for us. It's so scary. That's why some adoptees are just not ready yet to go into therapy. It takes them time to feel a sense of self and get some strength and regain a sense of control of their world, because these things happen to them. They had no choice. One of the core issues in adoption is a lack of self-control. Adoption begins with loss. There's grief, there's abandonment, there's rejection, there's shame, there's identity crisis. We're trying to figure out who we are, but if we don't know where we've been, our cultural, ethnic histories, like, I didn't know I was Argentinian, and people would impose identities on me and say, oh, you're Italian. Because I would say, I don't know who I am. They're like, you're Italian because you got brown hair and olive skin. And I thought, oh, okay. So I just took these identities on and I didn't know who I was. And I created false selves because no one was helping me be myself. And
Mm.
so yeah, those are pieces for adoptees that I would share with parents. Also, I can say that there's a lot of shame. You mentioned it earlier. There's shame in talking about this. There's an embarrassment, especially for kids who are in foster care. We are treated differently. We are. We're othered. We're not part of the family, right? We're there temporarily. I knew that when I was in my foster home because my foster sisters had their names on the wall. And I remember this clearly. And I actually thought, well, where's my name? And I took it upon myself to take my crayons and I wrote my name on my bedroom floor, marking my territory.
Mm.
And my foster mother was not trauma informed. She didn't understand this, and I got in trouble. And
Mm.
I had to wipe and wash my name off the floor. That was my punishment. And it was so shocking and traumatizing to me that I was almost like erasing my identity that I don't exist. Like that was a clear example of that's a behavior that is often confusing for parents, right? What's this behavior about? So, the iceberg effect. We need to
Mhm.
go beneath the behavior, step back, and I tell parents be an owl, observe, watch, and listen, and see when you see the behavior, explore what is this about? What is happening for my child? Not what is wrong with my child. And I'll tell parents a lot of the time, please don't ask what is wrong with you, because that implies there's something wrong with you, which will reinforce their shame. There's a part of them that has shame about
Mm.
this experience because kids will blame themselves. They're egotistic.
Mhm.
Why would any mother give away her baby? There must be something wrong with me. I mean, there's a logical train of thought there. And kids, if they're not being told otherwise, they're going to tell themselves negative stories. And
Mm.
that's what I did. I told myself, my parents didn't want me, they didn't love me, I'm not keepable, I'm not worthy, I'm not valuable. And that incubated in me for a long time. I had very low self-esteem. So so shame is really important to understand, and I have techniques for that to help kids separate themselves from their shame, um, and really helping kids grieve and and allowing them to have anger. Because if a child is experiencing anger, anger is valid, and we
Mhm.
need to go through the anger to get to the grief and the loss. So you need to meet your child where they are. So anger is a valid emotion to have. It's the manner in which it's expressed. But I always tell kids, anger is valid. Anger is important. It's saying something about your experience, and it's the manner in which it's expressed that we're going to learn how to externalize, project into an anger bag or a scream tube or a scream pillow or a cuss book or a big glob of Play-Doh and just putting all of that aggression and frustration about your experience, which is valid. So really following the child's lead and not being afraid to go into the trauma because parents get scared. I know parents get scared. If I go in the trauma, what's going to happen? Am I going to lose myself? Right. So I want to tell you a little story. One of my families, this child was in 3 foster homes, and every time they passed McDonald's, she would go into a full-fledged crying temper tantrum, right? I want to go to McDonald's. I want to go to McDonald's. So I often tell parents what's hysterical right now is historical. If
Yeah.
it's intense, it lasts a long time, and it's frequent, that's an adoption trauma related behavior. Because parents are always going, what's adoption trauma and what's regular behavior? If it's really intense, That's adoption related. It's related to the past. It's historical. So this little girl, every time she passed by McDonald's, she'd cry, I want to go to McDonald's. I want to go to McDonald's. And the mom was like, no, we're not going to McDonald's. McDonald's is not good for us, right? She's thinking about the nutrition.
Right.
She's not paying attention to the emotion, to what's underneath the iceberg. And so I said, we need to explore this in therapy. So I looked at her with curiosity. I'm an attachment informed therapist, always being curious, being aware of your tone of voice when you're asking questions, because kids will have a high sensitivity to any perceived sense of rejection. It can be a slight tone in your voice and they don't feel safe and they feel like you're being critical or judgmental, and then they're going to hide their motives, what happened to them. So I was very curious. So tell us what's happening every time you pass by McDonald's. You know what she said? My mommy's in McDonald's. My mommy's in McDonald's. She remembered having birth family visits with DCFS in McDonald's. And really across the country, a lot of visits happen at McDonald's. So I told the mother, guess what? No, you're not going to like this. You need to go into McDonald's. You need to order that burger with her. You need to be curious with her. Tell me what it was like to be in McDonald's with your birth mom. What did you do? What did you play? What do you remember? That's going into the trauma. And it can feel very scary, right? Because the parent is now identifying, you're identifying your child's grief and loss. And you will feel that grief and loss and that's okay. Because when we feel seen and heard by our parents, it's, wow, somebody outside gets me because I'm trying to get me to understand this pain. Thank you for bringing it out and letting me tell you the story of what my experience was at McDonald's. And it was really hard for this mother because it was really teaching her to lean into the discomfort of trauma. It's messy. You're not going to always have the right words, but the more you're curious and you accept, wow, I really need to go into McDonald's with her, feel her pain with her, that will help her process. And the next time you go past McDonald's, it's going to be a completely different experience. She's going to look and she's going to have a memory that's not connected to the grief and the loss because you've helped her process that. Will she still have feelings of grief and loss? Of course, but it won't be as intense, won't last as long and as frequent. Yeah. And that's really what mental health is. It's measuring the intensity, frequency, and duration of symptoms of behavior. And when you see progress, it's when they lessen and they soften and the child isn't as triggered. You know, like I lost my goldfish. I remember I was like 8 and my goldfish died. I had the most intense neurophysiological response to losing my goldfish. And I remember I was just, I couldn't breathe. And now looking back, that was trauma related. It triggered my grief and loss. And it gave me an opportunity, but I couldn't put 2 and 2 together as a child, and neither could my parents. But I've done a lot of digging deep, being a therapist, and really exploring my past to inform the work that we're understanding today about trauma. So that's my answer in a nutshell.
My goodness, I was riveted to every word that you were saying because I'm thinking about my own kids, and I'm sure our listeners are doing the same. And I love what you were sharing with because we've got the kids that are stressed out, kids who have anger, anxiety, they can become aggressive. Some of that, you sort of described there. And you mentioned a couple of things like a sad bag. Tell us about some of those tangible things that you were talking about. How did they come about? What do you use? What are they?
Yeah, so I had a child who was in 9 foster placements. It's always come from, I'm an experiential therapist. So there's no cookie cutter approach for kids. You have to really look at each child and look at their histories and look at their symptoms. And then that informs what intervention you're going to do. So the anger bag, this kid kept banging his head against the wall. He was angry. And all I kept thinking was he needs a container for these emotions, something to project it in. And so the anger bag became a toolkit, and it had 16 interventions in it for the child to pull out one at a time. And they're not doing it when they're angry, because we know when we're angry, we don't know how to, our brains just can't just stop and go, oh, it's time to go use my anger bag. So we use the anger bag when we're not angry because we know there's a part of us that has anger. So we're giving the child opportunities to externalize, transform, project these angry parts of themselves into the bag with sensory tools, Play-Doh, bubble wrap, a scream pillow, a scream tube, and paper to rip. And because anger also is a lot in the hands, and they're trying to project it out. So we want to teach them ways to release the aggression, the frustration in healthy ways, right? Maladaptive ways. And when I created this bag for this child, he stopped hitting his head on the wall. And it became a visual for him too. He had it in his room. He could see it. That's where my anger goes. And kids need these concrete tools. So then I created the sad bag. I would have, kids that were beyond the anger and were able to connect with their grief. So I created the sad bag, which also has the same types of sensory tools, worry dolls, a sad pillow, paper to draw, Play-Doh. It's just the metaphor for helping them release the sadness within themselves. Then there's the question box. As a kid, I had so many questions and I felt ashamed and guilty. And if I even asked my parent a question, like, Mom, where did I come from? I felt that she would think that I don't love her. That was the guilt. And a lot of adoptees talk about this. I'm afraid to ask my parents because they're going to think I don't love them if I ask them questions. So it's the parents' role to say, hey, I can imagine you have a lot of questions. So we're going to create a question box. And the question box, you can ask any question about your adoption story, about being in foster care, about anything. Why can't we have pizza for breakfast? It can be any question. And then as they're asking the questions, the parent says, well, is there one question you really want an answer to? We're going to timestamp it. Mom, dad, or mom and mom, we're going to have a week to go do the research, see if we can find this answer for you. Because as parents, you need to answer them age appropriate, right? Why was I adopted is very general, vague question, right? We want to answer it with authenticity, truth, age appropriate, of course. So you get to go, do the research, consult with an adoption competent therapist, consult with other parents. Then you come back, and I always tell parents, please ask your child, are you ready for the answer? Because I have it. And then I'm also explaining, tell children, if we don't have the answer, we're going to hold them in the question box. Again, it becomes another emotional and psychological containment for these big, right, identity questions about who they are. It's their birthright. And so that's the question box. And it becomes a stalling tactic for parents, because I would have parents come in, call me and say, my child just asked me why they were adopted, and I gave too much information. I didn't know what to say. And I said, I wish we had created the question box, because you could have said, that's a great question for the question box. When we get home, we're going to put it in the box. So for parents too, it contains the fears, the anxieties about, because the questions will come, right? It gives you an opportunity to think through the questions, provide the information, acknowledge this experience for your child. And then another intervention is the shame witch, which is something I still apply to myself as an adult. And so the shame witch it's a sandwich metaphor, and it's helping kids separate themselves from their behavior. So the bread on the bottom of your sandwich is your best friend inner voice. You're a good person. You're doing the best that you can. you're learning. It's okay to make mistakes. And then the turkey, the lettuce, the pickle, whatever your sandwich is, all that emphasis goes, whatever the problem is with whatever's wrong, you're going to separate from and have what's called objectivity. That's what's wrong. The math problem, making the mistake, because a lot of kids who've experienced trauma are self-deprecating. They are so hard on themselves. They take it so personally. So we really need to be able to separate out ourselves from our choices or actions or mistakes so that we can build our self-esteem and then learn how to repair or when we've made mistakes and put the emphasis on the problem, not on us. And then the bread on top again is the nice sandwich, sandwiching it all together. You're a good person. You're doing the best that you can. It's okay to make mistakes. And so this tool came out of a child who kept lying. I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid every time they made a mistake. And I could see they were living in pervasive shame. And a lot of Daniel Hughes's work really informed my work because the shame is a really core, I don't like the word issue, vulnerability for us. We have a lot of shame about just even feeling the grief. So the shame, which not only are we teaching kids to apply this to themselves, but parents, you can also use the shame, which when talking to your children, when you see them being so hard on themselves, right? You're a good person and the math is stupid. The math is hard, right? You're doing the best you can. You're learning. This is how you learn. So and then one more tool I'll share is the self-forgiveness tool. And this, again, is connected to that shame. A lot of kids who've had experiences where they feel it was their fault, they were placed in foster care, I give them an opportunity to forgive themselves. It was not your fault. And so we draw strengths on rocks. We put the rocks in water. We have dissolving rice paper. We write on the rice paper what we want to forgive ourselves for. We put it in the water, we say it out loud, and we see it disappear, and you're left with your strengths. Just these compassionate interventions, part of my toolbox, part of my book, The Traumatized and At-Risk Youth Toolbox, are just empowering, compassionate, and again, allowing the mental health piece, right? Allowing all of these complex emotions, the complex trauma, and just organizing it. I'm always working on helping kids feel safe in their bodies first. So my book has 5 phases. The first phase is just interventions, helping kids just feel safe in their bodies, because you can't go into the trauma until they feel safe enough within themselves. And then the second phase is building coping skills, like the anger bag, the question box, providing all these toolkits. I've had kids have shrines in their room. They've got the sad bag, the anger bag, question box, right? So they have these tools. All of my interventions, kids go home with them because, I'm only with them for an hour a week. I want them to be able to utilize these tools. And then the third phase is talking about what happened to them. Creating a family tree, a library of memories, helping them make sense of their identity, where they come from. And then the fourth phase is helping them regain a sense of control, resiliency, feeling good about themselves, building their self-esteem. And then the fifth phase is all about attachment, interventions for families to do with kids, and doing attachment work. So it's exciting, and I'm just so thrilled and blessed that I've been able to publish this book, because it's been a lifelong, my work, really. Everything that I've learned and everything that I've applied with families and what's worked. So I'm super excited that I now have this book. And I found, just being a therapist, we need more treatment manuals, especially for therapists. And there was not much out there. So I'm just so blessed. And I just really worked really hard this book. And Thank you so much for having me and be able to share the work that I developed for kids, teens, and families and adults.
Sandra Flach, host of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, and FASD educator Debbie Raymond, invite you to join Hope for the FASD Journey, a virtual support community for parents and caregivers raising individuals with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, diagnosed or not. This faith-based support community meets online 3 times each month, features special VIP guests, and a private Facebook group for members only, which includes Soul Care Saturday video devotionals led by Sandra and Deb. Both Sandra and Deb are adoptive moms raising kids with FASD and facilitators of the Facets neurobehavioral model. For details and to register, visit justicefororphans.ny.org/hope-community. That's justicefororphans.ny.org/hope-community.
So, Jeanette, I know I've got so much I want to talk to you about, but the book, we want to make sure our listeners know that your newest book, it's The Traumatized and At-Risk Youth Toolbox, over 160 attachment-informed interventions for working with kids and families and foster care and beyond. So I know is it for professionals and parents or just one or the other? Tell us kind of like why you wrote the book and who it's for.
Yes, it's for professionals and parents. Parents can get this book and DIY. You can do it yourself with your child in your home, at your kitchen table, or in their bedroom. Really, you can print out handouts. The supplies are basic. It's concrete. It's clear. Even one of them, I'm opening the book, You Broke Me. It's a blank puzzle piece, heart-shaped, and you let the child write all the parts of them that feel broken because of what's happened to them. You don't have to be a therapist. And I was talking to a parent yesterday. You are a theraparent. You're a therapeutic parent. And that's really a responsibility that's being talked about right now in trauma-informed care. When you have a child who's experienced trauma, you are becoming a therapeutic parent. So you want to inform yourself. And, you can get the book. You can choose a few interventions in each phase. Don't move into the next phase until you've mastered the first phase, until they feel a sense of calm in their body. They feel a sense of restoration, that they know how to self-regulate. Then you'll know, oh, okay, now we're going to create some coping skills. Let's teach them coping skills, because when the brain is overwhelmed, it's not able to be receptive for new learning. So you have to ensure that they're able to self-regulate first before learning new skills. And then, so basically you go through each phase. Some may be hit or miss. It's just like any form of therapy. Not everything works for everybody. So there will be a trial and error. Some kids like the anger bag. Some kids gravitate towards 3 interventions in the anger bag. You don't have to give them 16, right? Give them 3. That's a good number to start there. Let them choose. I always like to give kids a sense of control and have fun. Have fun. I'm a big advocate for the PACE acronym from Attachment Focused Family Therapy. And it goes like this: PACE, pace yourself. P is P cubed. Be playful, present, and patient. Okay? Have fun. A is accept your child is doing the best that they can. You're always going to convey, I love you. I may not love it when you throw your cell phone, right? I don't love that, right? It's the shame witch, right? We're putting emphasis on the behavior, not the child. C, be curious. Wow, I really liked what you drew there. Tell me more about that. That's really interesting, or help me understand that. I don't know what it feels like to be adopted. Like, it's okay to play dumb and be curious and ask questions, because kids want you. Want you to understand, because what's shareable becomes more bearable for them. And feeling heard as an adoptee is therapeutic in and of itself. And then E is have empathy. empathy. And then PACE, you're applying it to when you're doing these interventions, and apply it to yourself, right? You're applying this to your child. It doesn't have to be in this order. You know, when you see behavior, go, all right, what am I going to do? P, A, C, or E for my child and for myself, right? I'm feeling a little nervous right now going into this trauma, the library of memories, but I'm going to just stay regulated myself. Even these interventions can be applied to any adult. If you've had trauma, I'm doing a class for adult adoptees in a few weeks who've never had this work. And so you may even resonate. Like the self-forgiveness pull, you may realize there's things you need to forgive yourself about, right?
Yeah.
You can use this intervention. So it's not just for your children. You may resonate and go, you know what? I want to do this therapeutic intervention for me to help repair things that may be unresolved in my family of origin. We all have things that have happened to us. So really, it's a toolkit. It's a manual. Take your time. You don't have to get through the book in 6 months. This is a lifelong process. You'll know when your child is ready. And I get a lot of great feedback when parents have applied, and they, the sad bag, and just I can see my child feeling a sense of relief. And that's what we want with any intervention. You just see that they're feeling a sense of relief, and they're not alone in this experience anymore.
Yeah, I love that. And so the book, so when you talk about, like, say, the sad bag or the anger bag, in your book, you describe how to build one of these bags, what should go in one.
That's right. It says the goal, then it shows all the materials, then it has clear, concise directions, literally in one page. Feelings in my body. Yeah. How to, feelings in my heart, feelings, exploring feelings, managing shame, grief friend, a balloon release ceremony, missed connections, my string of connections, creating construction paper, hole punch, yarn and string, and on each heart, all the people, places, and things they feel connected to. Super easy. And then it's placed in their room, across their room, so they can see all their connections. I did this with a child who was adopted from China. We put China on a heart, her foster family on a heart, her birth mother, her birth father. She remembered an animal that was living in a previous foster home. So all of these connections we're acknowledging for her that she remembers, she has memories about, and she's allowed to think about and honor and value because they're a part of her story. So very simple, concrete interventions that any parent can do. You don't have to be a therapist.
I love that. I love that. What a great resource. And of course, we'll put a link in the show notes so our listeners can find your book. I'm sure it's available Amazon, all the places books are sold.
Yes, yes.
Awesome. So, and the title of the book again is The Traumatized and At-Risk Youth Toolbox. Over 160 attachment-informed interventions for working with kids and families in foster care and beyond. I love that. One quick question, because then I want to ask you about your YouTube channel. But I do know, sometimes we have kids who have the big behaviors, but then we have kids who don't talk about their feelings. They don't want to talk about it. They sort of mask and pretend everything is great. What can you tell us about that? What's the best way? Because obviously they need to talk about their feelings and they need to deal with some stuff, right? But how do we get there? How do we get them there?
Well, I think it's important for adoptees to be with other adoptees.
Yes.
Because when a teenager is with another teenager who's been adopted, there's an unspoken language. And that in and of itself validates their experience. When they feel isolated and they don't know any other adoptees, they're not going to talk about it because they're going to feel, oh, this is something we don't talk about. My family's not talking about it. It starts with the parents being comfortable talking and sharing about whatever they know. So one of my interventions is the family tree. We need to give children their story as much as possible as we know. And when a parent is part of the child's story, that dialogue begins to happen. It's the parent's comfort level to talk about adoption, right? As early as possible, read books about adoption. I developed a children's book called What is Adoption? Because I thought about no one explained to me what was adoption. So being with other adoptees, so finding support groups for teenagers is really important. I have a teen event coming up next November. For November is Adoption Awareness Month. An adoption competent therapist who's an adoptee really helps teens open up, because they look at us and they go, oh, you were adopted too? Like, they know they can't hide, and it's actually refreshing. Like, wow, you understand my experience, and I don't have to do what's called adoptee-splaining. I don't have to explain the whole thing because you understand. See, that's the piece. It's, if I go to a therapist who's not adoption competent, I'm gonna have to explain everything, and they don't understand. So there's a lot more adoption competent therapists now across the country. So definitely seek and find that therapist. If you don't know and you can't find one, find any adoption competent therapist. Email me. I'm happy to provide you, because I know a lot of adoptees across the country. And I think Center for Adoption and Support in Education has a list of adoption competent therapists. But if you have a teen who's resistant, I believe they need to be with an adoptee who's an adoption therapist. That's really important. And also for you, getting comfortable with the discomfort of talking and opening up the bag, so to speak, right? Letting the cat out of the bag. Because if you're uncomfortable, they're going to be uncomfortable. We set the tone. We're the thermostat, parents. And so we do need to be direct. If we wait for kids, you're going to wait forever. You do need to be direct, like having books around the house. Even kids, for younger kids, what is adoption? There's a whole bunch of books out there. I have a list of books that I have. I can provide that for you, because there's a lot of books out there. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. And books, they need to be with community. And that's why I started a nonprofit here in Los Angeles called Celia Center, which I named after my birth mother, because it became a mission for me to bring us all together. That's adult adoptees, foster parents, adoptive parents, and birth parents. And then we started support groups. We had teen events and arts festivals, and just innovative ways for us as a community to know that we're not alone. We're a culture. And so I think if you do have a teen, to answer your question, community, therapist who understands, and also just providing them with memoirs. I mean, I was a teenager and my father gave me the book, Live Your Dreams. It was one of the first memoirs I ever read. And then I read, and he was actually raised in foster care. What was his name again? Anyway, and then I read Betty Jean Lifton's book. She was one of the first adoptees to write memoirs about being adopted. And that shifted my whole perspective. So give them books. Don't expect, don't place an expectation on it. Just go, hey, like my adoptive father bought me the book Being Adopted by David Brodzinski. And I remember I was scared to open it, but I read it. And it gave me the space to think about being adopted. And it helped me understand that I was not alone, and that there was a doctor, Dr. Brodzinski, who'd done research on us. I felt heard, seen, and received. So books are really important for teens also, that talk about their experience. And there's a lot out there. Many more adoptees are writing memoirs, but you do need to make sure they're age appropriate, of course. in that regard, because, if it's an adult adoptee memoir, there may be pieces in there that are not age appropriate for teenagers.
Yeah. No, those are
Yeah.
all great. I love that. And another resource that you have that I want to make sure we get to talk about is your YouTube channel. I love it. Jeanette is your name. Genetically Speaking is your YouTube channel. So tell us what we will find there.
Yes. So every time I heard the word genetics, I thought that's kind of like my name. Wait, that would make a great name for a YouTube channel. Genetically Speaking, because that's what I do. So it's speaking about adoption, foster care, and mental health. And I've done a lot of trainings, and I had all this content. And one of my first videos was for children, called The Hand Model of the Brain for Kids. I just wanted to teach kids what was going on, why we have behavior, and what happens in our brains. And this is based on Daniel Siegel's work. And he has a video, The Hand Model of the Brain. I put that video up there, and I left it there, and it had over 100,000 views. And I said, oh, I'm going to put more videos up there. So I have trainings for parents, how to tell your child their foster care and adoption story, how to answer tough questions. I have videos for kids, how to make a sad bag for kids ages 6 to 11, how to do it. I talk directly to kids, an anger bag, sad bag, 5 ways to hack your stress, your river of thoughts, if you're having all these thoughts, mindfulness. And then I have animations that I've made for kids. What is adoption, which is pretty much my children's book, but it's an animation. And in the animation, what is adoption? I tell kids, make a question box, make a sad bag, make an anger bag, because it's okay to have all of these feelings because you're grieving the loss of your birth family. And then I share with them all the people that we know that are either celebrities or important people that have had impact in our world and culture who were also adopted. So they recognize you're not alone. Babe Ruth was in foster care. And then there's What is Foster Care? That's another animation focusing on children in foster care. Then I most recently created an animation, What is Family Court? Because I had a lot of kids going to court and they were so overwhelmed, so scared. Who am I going to meet? What's there? What's going on? Why am I here? So what is family court? So it's educational, the videos. It's for parents, for therapists, social workers, and children and teens. So I hope you visit it and you get some information and education and support that you need. And if there's anything you want me to make a video on, email me. I'll do my best.
Do it.
Because there's so much to do.
Yes. Yes. And it's you've got a ton of stuff on there. I was checking out your YouTube channel. So it is Genetically Speaking, and genetically is Jeanette, your name, hyphen ICALLY. So we'll put a link in the show notes because it's definitely worth a visit and lots of resources there. Your book, of course, you mentioned Celia Center, but also you founded and direct Yoffe Therapy, providing services to families, children, teens, and adults connected by foster care and adoption. So tell us a little bit about that too.
Yeah, so I have a group psychotherapy practice in Los Angeles. I'm in my office now. You can kind of see the background. I have womb swings, WOMB, and they're therapeutic swings that help. The focus is helping them feel safe in their bodies. So everything in my practice is sensory, trauma informed, grief and loss informed. And I have associates in my practice who I train, who are gaining their hours and licensure to be adoption and foster care competent. So we've been here in Los Angeles since 2006. I've trained over 12 adoption competent therapists here who've gained their licensure. And we work with all families, any family really who's experienced, even loss through divorce, right? There's loss there, any type of separation trauma, kinship care, relative care, even helping families. There are families that still have not told their children they were adopted. right? It's important. We don't want late discovery adoptees. That causes so much more pain for children. So really, we're a practice, psychotherapy practice, focusing on foster care and adoption and anything related to trauma and anything reunification therapy, helping families become whole again. That's really been our motto.
I love that. And now, do you just serve families in California, in LA, or do you have a way to reach other families across the country?
So when you're licensed in one state, you can only see families in that state. So we work with families in California. I actually am pursuing my licensure in New York because I was born and raised in New York. So I will be dually licensed. Very excited. I'll be taking the state exam because I do want to work with more families in New York because that's where I'm from.
Great need.
So yeah,
Sure.
basically, and we do teletherapy for those that are not here in Los Angeles. And we can do coaching with anyone across the country, but it's not therapy, it's coaching, right? Answering questions, providing psychoeducation. If you're feeling stuck with your child, you don't know how to answer a question, we can coach you in answering. So it doesn't have to be long-term therapy. It could be one coaching session just to give you some relief in supporting your family.
I love that. So, Jeanette, do you have one website where everything exists so our listeners could just go there? Can you tell us that?
JeanetteYoffe.com. So my name, JeanetteYoffe.com, and you'll see 3 columns. You can visit Celia Center, Jeanette Yoffe, which I have some articles there, and then Yoffe Therapy.
Yeah, I love that. So we'll make sure we put a link in the show notes because you've got so much there. And we do have listeners who listen in from California. So if they didn't know about you already, hopefully they'll be able to reach out for sure. I love that. And I feel like I could just listen to you forever. So thankfully you have that YouTube channel. But I do want to wrap up with a question, because I shared with you earlier, most of our listeners are foster and adoptive parents. We're parenting our children who've come from trauma. We're trying to navigate all of this. So would you leave us with some words of encouragement or a piece of advice, something really to encourage us on our journey?
Yeah, I think healing happens when everyone's truth is welcomed. And we want to help adoptees express their truth. They need a lot of validation. You matter, parents. And I feel like parents don't get enough credit. You matter to us. We need you more than you know. We may push you away. There's a push and pull because we're just scared. We're protecting ourselves. So we need a lot of reassurance from you. It's okay to talk about this. Of course you're feeling this way. Of course you have questions. Of course I'm here to listen without judgment. Tell me I'm here when you're ready. So giving them space and time to allow them to share their feelings, their thoughts, their sensations, so that we can bring all of these pieces together so everyone can heal a little bit more. Because I know as parents, a lot of families come in with their own grief and loss. If there's infertility, not all families, choose adoption at first. So I want us all to have compassion for each other. Providing that space, that safety. You're not going to dismiss your impact as a parent. It's getting on their level, not one-upping their level. It's getting on their level because that's what attachment is about, in building security and safety, knowing that someone's out there looking out for me, with me, relating to me, and not feeling afraid of me, right? And afraid of what I could say or feel or do. And yes, kids are going to push boundaries. They're going to make mistakes. And that's an opportunity for learning and teaching. And so pace yourself through this process. Be playful in moments where it may be intense, because sometimes you can shift things and everybody starts laughing, right? Because kids get stuck. So allow yourself the process to breathe through all of this stuff. It's a lot of complexity, but have fun. doing it. Have fun being open to the exploration, because that's where healing is. It really is. That's the golden piece in healing, being open to this experience. And I love this quote, speak even if your voice shakes. And that's what it feels like for us. Like, am I really going to talk about this with my family? Well, you're the model. Parents are models, right? Show your vulnerability and we'll be able to show ours.
Love that, Jeanette. Thank you so much for sharing your story today and for all the incredible work you are doing for everybody in the adoption and foster care constellation. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. We'll make sure all of the links are in our show notes so that our listeners can go find you on YouTube and find your website. Again, thank you for all you do and for being with us today.
Thank you, Sandra. I really appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for tuning in today for the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jeanette Yoffe. She has so many incredible resources for adoptive and foster parents. So we will put the links in the show notes, and I hope that you will go check out what she has. Her YouTube channel has great videos. Her book has 160 interventions that you can try that are super, super easy. Any parent can implement those. So I hope that you will check that out, because we love to make sure that you have the resources and support that you need for your parenting journey. Of course, we have also great resources that are FASD specific, including, you heard our commercial on the support group, the Hope for the FASD Journey support group, our online group. We meet 3 Tuesday nights a month via Zoom. So if you can join that group, then you'll be able to be part of a great community of foster and adoptive parents raising kids that have been prenatally exposed to alcohol. So you can check out that, as well as parent coaching and our FASD training. Typically, I offer a free intro to FASD every month online. And I also typically offer a 3-hour, not free, there is a fee for that one, but a 3-hour training that takes you deeper than our intro every month. Now we're getting into the season where I have a lot of other traveling and conferences going on, and people aren't so much signing up for stuff in November and December because we're all busy with the holidays. So there's nothing scheduled, I will say, for November or December. So, but be on the lookout, because starting in January, I'll be offering all of those again. And of course, you can reach out anytime if you want to schedule a one-on-one parent coaching. I'm always happy to do that. But stay tuned to our social media and to this podcast and to our website so that you can know when all of the next online classes are taking place. And again, our website is justicefororphansny.org. Please be sure to like and follow us on our Facebook and social media, Instagram pages. We do have a YouTube channel where all of the video versions of this podcast live, and that is the Justice for Orphans YouTube channel. JFO is our parent organization, the nonprofit where all of the adoption and foster care journey and FASD stuff kind of comes under that umbrella. So we do have our own socials at the adoption and foster care journey, and we do have our own section on the website that you can find, and so you need to go there to find the things. But we're connected, but that is why the main website is justicefororphansny.org. There's links. Go down to the show notes. It's super easy to find, along with my email address. If you want to contact me directly, you can do that. Again, I am so, so grateful that you spent your valuable time with me today. I am grateful to have you along for the journey.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, brought to you by Justice for Orphans. We hope you were encouraged today. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review, and share it with your fellow foster and adoptive parent friends so they can be encouraged too. Be sure to find and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Justice for Orphans, and check out our website for vital resources at justicefororphansny.org.